I still remember that night. The sound of the zipper, sharp and sudden, cutting through the silence. The scent of her perfume lingered in the air, familiar, soft, but mixed with something else, something colder. A man's cologne. And inside his suitcase was my shirt, the one I gave her on our 10th anniversary. My hands trembled. My breath stopped. Betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers through fabric. My name is Nathan Hall. I'm 47, head of human resources at a firm in Boston. For 20 years, I believed I understood what stability meant: a steady job, a warm home, a wife who loved me. I thought love was built on predictability, on the comfort of knowing someone will always be there. But I was wrong. Arabella, my wife, used to fill our house with laughter. Now she hums to herself quietly when she thinks I'm not listening. She's been staying late at school. Grading, she says. Preparing lessons. I nod. I smile. But deep down, I feel something slipping away. Something I can't quite name. She used to tell me everything, about her students, her paintings, the strange dreams she had. Lately, her words have grown shorter. How was your day? I ask. Fine, she says. And that's the end of it. Our conversations have become echoes of what they used to be. Polite, restrained, almost professional. Sometimes I catch her smiling at nothing. Or maybe it's not nothing. Maybe it's someone. There's a light in her eyes I haven't seen in years. Soft, secretive. I want to ask about it, but I don't. Maybe I'm afraid of the answer. She still wears the perfume I bought her. The same one I once loved. Now, every time she walks past me, it feels like a reminder, a scent that doesn't belong to me anymore. Our mornings have turned into rituals. She pours my coffee. I scroll through my phone. She asks, "Big day ahead?" I say, "Always." We both smile, out of habit. Then she leaves first, her footsteps fading down the hall. The door closes and the silence that follows feels heavier every day. There was a time I thought silence meant peace. Now it feels like distance, the kind you can't cross with words. We used to argue, used to care enough to fight. Now we simply agree. And that's how love dies, isn't it? Not with shouting, but with quiet acceptance. I've started to notice the little changes, the new lipstick shade, the messages she types and deletes, the way she turns her phone face down on the table. None of it proves anything, yet everything does. I tell myself it's stress, that marriage goes through seasons, but when she looks at me now, it's like she's studying a stranger, someone she used to know. And I can't blame her. I've been absent in my own life for too long, buried in meetings, deadlines, excuses. Maybe she stopped reaching for me the day I stopped noticing. Still, part of me believed we were unbreakable, that whatever drifted could be repaired. Until that night, when I opened his suitcase and saw it, my shirt, folded perfectly, the same blue stitching, the same faint scent of her skin. In that moment, something inside me split open. I didn't shout, I didn't move. I just stared, realizing how fragile everything I thought I knew had become. Because betrayal doesn't start with lies. It starts with silence, the kind we both learned to live with. And as I stood there, frozen between anger and understanding, I realized this wasn't the moment everything fell apart. It was just the moment I finally saw it. Ethan called that afternoon, his voice light and familiar. "Hey, Nate, you still owe me a drink before I leave town. Come by. Help me pack, will you?" He laughed the way he always did, easy and careless, like nothing in the world could ever really go wrong. I said yes without thinking. We've known each other since college. 25 years of friendship, birthdays, business trips, family dinners. He was the kind of man who made life feel lighter. Arabella always said he had a gift for that. "He brings air into the room," she once told me. Back then, I agreed. When I arrived, his apartment looked the same as always. Half chaos, half charm. Clothes scattered on the couch, open suitcases on the floor, music humming from a small speaker. He was pacing near the window, phone pressed to his ear, waving at me to make myself at home. I sat down, watched him talk, his laughter echoing from across the room. He had that energy again, alive, confident, glowing in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. My eyes wandered to the suitcase lying open beside me, shirts folded carelessly, a tie draped over the edge, nothing out of the ordinary. Out of habit, I began helping. I picked up a few shirts, refolded them neatly, trying to bring some order to the mess. It was what I did best. But when I reached for the last stack, I saw it. A soft fabric, white, thin, with faint blue stitching along the collar. I froze. My fingers brushed the cloth, tracing the edge as if my memory needed proof. Then I saw it, small, almost hidden near the hem, delicate embroidery in silver thread. To A.N. My breath caught, my chest tightened. No one else could know those initials. No one else could have that shirt. It was hers, the one I gave Arabella 10 years ago. She wore it on our anniversary trip to Cape Cod, her hair tied up, the ocean wind catching her laughter. She said it made her feel young again. And now it was here, in his suitcase. I stared at it for what felt like forever. The music faded. My hands started to tremble. A thin line of sweat ran down my temple. My mind tried to reason. Maybe she lent it to him. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe anything but what it looked like. But no lie could soften the truth already forming inside me. The front door creaked. Ethan's voice came closer, still laughing into the phone. Then he ended the call, tossing it onto the counter. He looked at me, easy smile, unaware. "You okay, man?" I blinked, forcing my hands to stay still. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Just something familiar." He nodded, half listening, already distracted, checking his flight time. I zipped the suitcase for him, each tooth of the zipper closing like the sound of something breaking inside me. On the drive home, I couldn't think straight. Every thought circled back to that shirt, the way it was folded, the way it smelled faintly of her perfume, not imagined, not mistaken. And the same words kept echoing in my head over and over. No way. No way. Because sometimes the heart knows long before the mind admits it. And mine, in that quiet, shaking moment, already knew. When I got home that night, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The clock ticked in the hallway, steady, indifferent. I walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and stared at the row of neatly hung clothes. It took me only a second to see it. The white shirt, the one with the blue stitching, wasn't there. I ran my fingers along the hangers, once, twice, as if it might somehow appear if I looked hard enough. But the space where it used to hang was empty. A faint outline on the wooden hanger, a small ghost of fabric, was all that remained. When she came in, she was holding her phone, smiling faintly at something on the screen. "Long day?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. My eyes were still on the closet. "Arabella," I said, trying to sound casual. "That white shirt, the one I gave you years ago, do you know where it is?" She paused, glanced at me for a moment, then shrugged lightly. "Oh, that one? I think I gave it away a long time ago." Her voice was calm, almost careless, but her eyes, they flickered, just for a second. It was enough. "You gave it away?" I asked quietly. "When?" "I don't remember, Nathan. It was just a shirt." "Just a shirt," I repeated. "Right." She smiled softly, like she wanted to close the conversation. But something about that smile, it wasn't real. It was practiced, like a line from a play she'd rehearsed before. That night, I couldn't stop watching her. The way she moved around the kitchen, the way she turned her phone face down on the counter when it buzzed, the way she laughed softly to herself, not the full, unguarded laugh I once knew, but a small, secret one. Later, as I walked past the bedroom, I saw her sitting on the edge of the bed, texting. When she noticed me, she quickly locked the screen. I asked, "Who is that?" She looked up, surprised, maybe even guilty. "Just one of my students," she said. "They needed help with an art project." I nodded, pretending to believe her, but my stomach tightened. It wasn't the words, it was the pause before them. In the following days, I began to notice everything. How she would silence her phone when I entered the room, how she'd say, "I'll be home late," with a tone that sounded too familiar, too routine. How she started wearing lipstick on days she claimed she wasn't seeing anyone. I told myself I was overthinking, that this was what paranoia looked like. But once you've seen something that doesn't fit, your mind can't unsee it. One evening when she said she had to stay late again, I called Ethan. It was late, nearly 10. The line rang twice before someone answered. "Hello?" a soft voice said. It wasn't Ethan, it was her. "Arabella?" I asked, my voice suddenly dry. There was a beat of silence. Then she said, lightly, "Oh, hi, I just borrowed his phone for a second." "For what?" I asked, though I didn't even know why. She laughed gently, too gently. "Don't sound so serious. He just stepped out. I'll tell him you called." Before I could say another word, the line went dead. I sat there, the phone still pressed against my ear, my pulse thudding. Maybe it was a coincidence, maybe not. But something inside me shifted, the last thread of trust loosening quietly. From that moment, every sound, every smile, every small pause felt like a clue. I started replaying conversations in my head, reading into every glance, every touch. It wasn't just suspicion anymore, it was obsession. And though I didn't want to admit it, a part of me knew I had already begun to live in the answer I was afraid to find. It was a quiet Sunday when Lydia came home, her camera swinging from her shoulder. "Dad, look," she said, flipping through her photos. "I think I finally got something good for my internship piece." I smiled, half listening at first, until a familiar face appeared on the screen. Arabella, sitting in a corner cafe by the window, sunlight spilling across her sketchbook. She looked peaceful, lighter than I'd seen her in years. Lydia grinned. "I caught Mom without her noticing. She looks so relaxed, right?" My throat tightened. "Where was this?" I asked. "Beacon Street Cafe, the one with the green awning." She laughed softly. "Funny, I didn't even realize she was meeting someone." I leaned closer. And there, faintly reflected in the glass, was another figure. Ethan, sitting right across from her. The world around me seemed to fade. The sound of Lydia's voice became distant. I kept staring at the reflection, hoping I was wrong, but I knew that shape, that lazy smile, the way his hand rested near his watch. I'd recognize it anywhere. I forced myself to speak. "Lydia, when was this?" "Last Friday, I think," she said. "Why?" "No reason." My voice cracked. "It's a beautiful shot." She smiled proudly. "I told Mom I might use it for the article. She didn't seem to mind." I managed to nod. "Good work, sweetheart." That night, after she went to bed, I looked at the photo again. Arabella's face glowed with a kind of ease I hadn't seen in years, and opposite her, his reflection. Two people, sitting comfortably in a moment I was never meant to see. I whispered to myself, "How long, Arabella? How long has this been happening?" The picture didn't answer. It didn't need to. The next day, I began to notice everything I had ignored. Her perfume, stronger now, different somehow. The new dress I hadn't seen before. The way she smiled at her phone. The way she turned away when I entered the room. That evening, I asked quietly, "You've been busy lately. Beacon Street again?" She froze, just for a heartbeat. "I told you, I've been staying late with students." "Right," I said. "With students." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Nathan, what are you implying?" "Nothing," I lied. "Just asking." She sighed, shaking her head. "You're imagining things again." And then she walked away, calm, steady, untouched. But something inside me snapped into focus. The next morning, while she showered, I checked our joint card history. 3 charges at the same cafe, same day, same time. I whispered to myself, Friday afternoons. Later, I found a crumpled receipt in her coat pocket, 2 coffees, 1 slice of cake. I pressed it flat on the counter, staring at it as if it could confess. My reflection in the glass door caught my eye, pale and tired. That night, I waited until she went to bed, then opened her laptop. Search history, messages. I wasn't proud, but curiosity had turned into survival. There it was, an email draft unsent. "Thank you for today. You always know how to listen." My hands shook. When she came into the kitchen the next morning, I tried to sound normal. Who's Ethan been talking to lately? I asked lightly. She frowned. Why would you ask that? Just curious. She hesitated, then said, He called last night. Needed advice about work. I smiled, but my voice came out hollow. You always seem to know when he needs something. She didn't respond, just looked at me, as if weighing whether I already knew. That night I lay awake beside her, watching the shadows move across the ceiling. Every tiny sound in the dark made my chest tighten, the buzz of her phone, the whisper of her breathing. And in that silence, a thought took root. They hadn't just met once. It wasn't coincidence. It was repetition, intention. Every trail I followed, the receipts, the locations, the emails, led back to the same truth. She had found in him what she no longer looked for in me. I turned toward her sleeping face and whispered, Tell me it isn't true. Please. But she didn't stir. And in that moment, I knew. She didn't have to say a word. The truth was already speaking for her. I invited Ethan to dinner that Friday. My voice was light, almost cheerful when I called. It's been too long, I said. Come over, Arabella's making your favorite. He laughed, as if nothing in the world had changed. And for a few hours, I tried to believe that too. When he arrived, the house looked warm, familiar. The table was perfectly set. Arabella had opened a bottle of wine, Merlot, the one she always used for celebrations. She greeted him with a smile that felt a little too practiced, a little too bright. We sat down, talked about old college stories, work, travel plans. But every laugh felt hollow, every silence heavier than the last. I could feel the tension threading through every word, invisible but sharp. Ethan poured himself a drink. Still the same glasses, huh? He said, lifting one up. Some things don't change, I replied. Others do. He chuckled, not catching it, or pretending not to. Arabella's hand brushed mine when she reached for the bread basket. She flinched as if she'd touched something burning. Halfway through dinner, I caught her eyes. She looked away. Her fork scraped softly against the plate, the sound like a crack in the air. Ethan tried to fill the silence. You two always make me feel at home, he said, smiling. Do we? I asked. That's good to know. Arabella's fingers tightened around her glass. I could see the tremor in her hand. When she finally spoke, her voice was too calm. Nathan, could you pass the salt? I did, but my hand paused midway. Of course, I said softly. I wouldn't want to forget anything tonight. The air shifted. Ethan glanced between us, uncertain. Everything okay? Perfect, I said. Just clearing my head. We went through the motions. Dessert, small talk, dishes clinking like punctuation marks in a conversation none of us dared to finish. And then, as he stood up to leave, I followed him to the door. Ethan, I said quietly, you left something in your suitcase last time. He turned, puzzled. What do you mean? A shirt, I said. White with blue stitches. His smile faltered. Nathan. An anniversary gift, I continued, my voice barely above a whisper. I recognized it. For a second, no one breathed. The room froze. Arabella's glass slipped from her hand, shattered against the floor. Wine splattered across her dress like a stain that would never wash out. Ethan's jaw tightened, his eyes flicking to her, then back to me. He didn't say a word, just nodded once, almost imperceptibly, and walked out. The door closed behind him, soft but final. The silence that followed was unbearable. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady and violent. Arabella didn't move. She just stared at the floor, shards of glass at her feet. Say something, I whispered. She looked up, eyes glistening. You don't understand, Nathan. Then make me understand. Her lips parted, then closed again. A tear slid down, slow and soundless, and in that moment, I knew. The truth was standing right in front of me, waiting to be heard, but I wasn't ready to listen. The rain was relentless that night, heavy, furious, like the sky had finally broken. I walked down the dark hall, the wooden floor creaking under my steps. The light from her studio spilled faintly through the doorway. I stopped for a second, listening. No music, no hum, just the soft sound of her breathing between brushstrokes. When I pushed the door open, Arabella didn't turn around. She sat in front of an unfinished painting, a stormy canvas, gray and cold, brushes scattered around her feet, the smell of turpentine thick in the air. "Couldn't sleep," I said quietly. She didn't answer. Then, after a long pause, her voice came, calm, steady, cutting straight through me. "Do you ever really see me, Nathan?" The question hit harder than I expected. "What's that supposed to mean?" She let out a bitter laugh, still facing the canvas. "It means I live in this house beside you, but it's like I'm invisible. You see my body, not my heart. You talk, but you never listen." I took a step closer. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" she snapped, spinning around. "When was the last time you looked at me, Chata? Really looked, not as your wife, not as part of your routine, but as a person?" Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned with something fierce, alive. I clenched my jaw. "Arabella, if you're trying to justify what you did," she interrupted, sharp. "I'm trying to explain why it happened." Silence. Only the rain pounding harder against the window. "You don't talk to me anymore," she said, quieter now. "You don't ask, you don't notice. I've been dying here, Nathan, and you never saw it." I felt something inside me twist. "And your answer was Ethan?" She turned away. "He listened." My voice rose before I could stop it. "He's my friend!" she shot back just as loud. "He was human, something you stopped being with me a long time ago." The words hit like a slap. I took a step forward. "You think loneliness excuses this?" She wiped her face, her voice cracking. "You think neglect doesn't count as betrayal? You left me long before I left you." The room pulsed with silence. Our breathing, rough, uneven, the only sound left. I said through gritted teeth, "All these years, Arabella, I worked, I built, I tried to give us everything." She laughed bitterly. "You gave me walls, Nathan. You built me a cage and called it a home." I slammed my hand on the table. The sound echoed through the room. "Don't twist this into my fault." Tears filled her eyes. "I begged you to see me, to listen. You always said later would tomorrow, but next week. But your tomorrow never came." I stood there, breathing hard, staring at the woman I no longer recognized, the paint-stained floor, the trembling hands, the look of someone who'd already crossed a line she couldn't uncross. "So this is what's left of us," I said quietly. She whispered, "It already ended long before tonight." I turned away, my throat burning. "Then congratulations, Arabella. You found what you needed." Her voice broke behind me. "No, I found what you forgot to give." The rain roared outside, drowning out everything else. I couldn't look at her again. I left the room, her sobs echoing faintly in the hall, a sound I knew would follow me for the rest of my life. The bar was half empty, the kind of place where the music was low and the lights were kinder than the truth. I found him sitting in the back, a half-finished drink in front of him. For a moment I just stood there watching. He looked up, met my eyes, and didn't even flinch. He knew why I was there. I walked over, sat down across from him. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence between us said enough. Finally, I broke it. "You knew I'd come." Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah, I figured." He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. I leaned forward, voice low. "You betrayed me." He didn't look surprised. He took a slow breath before answering. "I didn't plan it, Nathan. I swear, it just happened." "Just happened," I repeated, the words bitter on my tongue. "That's what you call it? You sat across from me for years, shared my table, my home, and all this time." He cut in quietly. "And all that time she was slipping away from you. You just didn't see it." My fists tightened. I wanted to hit him, wanted to feel something sharp enough to cut through the numbness, but I couldn't. He looked exhausted, broken even. He went on, his voice cracking a little. She was lost, Nathan. I didn't go looking for her. She found me. And before I knew it, He stopped, shaking his head. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed under my breath. No humor in it. You didn't mean to. That's the line everyone uses right before they do. He stared down at his drink. You were my brother. Were, I said flatly. You were my brother. He nodded, eyes glistening. And you were the man she needed, until you weren't. The words landed like a punch. I gritted my teeth. You think that justifies it? No, he said softly. Nothing does. For a long while, neither of us spoke. The rain outside tapped against the windows like an unwanted witness. The bartender glanced our way but didn't interfere. He must have known. Some things can't be fixed by conversation or whiskey. Ethan finally whispered, She loved you, Nathan. Maybe she still does. But she was drowning. You were too far to pull her out. I looked at him, the man who used to finish my sentences, the man who knew every secret I'd ever had. Now he was just a stranger holding a glass he couldn't bring himself to finish. I should hate you, I said quietly. Every part of me should. He met my gaze. Then hate me. You'll be right to. I took a deep breath, the air heavy between us, but the anger, it didn't come. Just emptiness. I won't, I said finally, because hating you means she still stands between us, and I'm done giving her that power. He looked down, nodded slowly. Maybe that's the first honest thing either of us has said. We sat there, two men on opposite sides of something already broken beyond repair. No shouting, no forgiveness. Just the quiet understanding that we had both lost, her, each other, and whatever pieces of ourselves used to matter. When I stood to leave, Ethan said softly, For what it's worth, I wish I'd never answered that call. I didn't reply. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of thunder. And as I walked away, I realized there are no victors in betrayal. Only two men left behind by the same woman, carrying the weight of what they destroyed. The house was silent when I came home. No footsteps. No voice calling my name, no sound of the kettle boiling the way it always did around this hour. Only the faint echo of rain still dripping from the eaves, like a clock marking the end of something I wasn't ready to name. Her keys were gone from the bowl by the door. Her perfume no longer lingered in the hallway. But on the table, there was an envelope with my name written in her hand, careful, familiar, shaking just slightly at the edges. I sat down and opened it slowly. The paper smelled faintly of paint and lavender, the way she always did. Her handwriting curved softly across the page. Nathan, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even sure I deserve to be understood. I just hope you remember. Once, we did love each other, truly, deeply, and even if everything has changed, that part was real. Please don't let the ending erase it. It wasn't signed with love or with her name, just a small heart drawn in the corner, the same way she used to sign our grocery lists. I folded the letter once, twice, as if I could somehow press the past into smaller, quieter shapes. Around me, the house felt too large, too neat, too empty, the kind of silence that follows after every storm. Clean, but cruel. I walked into the bedroom. The closet door creaked softly when I opened it, and there it was. The old hanger, still waiting, still holding nothing. On the chair beside the bed lay the white shirt, the one that had started everything. She must have left it there on purpose, folded carefully, as if to say, This belongs to you again. I picked it up. The fabric was soft, the faint scent of her still clinging to it. For a moment, I thought of burning it, letting the fire consume everything that hurt. But no, I washed it instead. Slowly. Gently. I watched the water turn cloudy, watched it clear again. Then I ironed it, folded the sleeves the way she used to, and placed it back into the closet, right where it had always belonged. I stood there for a long time, staring at it. The shirt looked clean, new, untouched, but I knew, no matter how many times you wash something, some stains never really leave. Maybe that's what love is, not the perfect picture we build in our heads, but the quiet act of letting go before everything tears apart. Maybe forgiveness isn't about saying it's okay, maybe it's about accepting that it's not. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the silence that used to be ours, and in that stillness, I whispered to no one, "Goodbye, Arabella." Maybe love isn't about holding on, but about knowing when to let go, before the fabric tears completely.